Greetings, everyone. You are tuned in to another haunting W3 radio with your bloodthirsty hosts, Michael Schofield, Daniel Sims, and David the Bat Gillhepsy.
Wow.
When you want the taste of a truly great beer.
Spooky intro.
It's Monday, October 30th, recorded on Friday before Monday, October 30th. We've been on hiatus. We want to congratulate our reason for a hiatus, Dan Sims' new father. Congratulations, Dan, on having a little devil of your own.
I get it. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
So this month I was like holding out for, like, at first, like, our due date was this Saturday, actually the 28th, and I was hoping for Friday the 13th. That was what we were like crossing fingers for.
Yeah.
At least
That's my mom's.
By we I mean like me and Dave and some of our friends at work who are
Right.
really into like cheesy horror movies. And then that blew by, and then I was like holding out for like Devil's Night or Halloween.
Oh, man, you missed him.
Didn't quite make it.
Yeah, you missed so many great days.
You can still baptize your child in Crystal Lake.
Sounds good.
Just in time, though, to dress him or her up. Is it a boy or is it a girl?
It is a little girl.
Man. I'm not saying like, oh man, that sucks. I was like, I have one. It's like,
Yeah, I have two.
Yeah. So, welcome and good luck.
Thanks. Yeah, it's I don't care that much either way, like what the gender was,
okay.
But I was definitely a little disappointed because I feel like boys have way more interesting hobbies and toys and stuff to play with as kids.
No, raise a little engineer. So, my little girl is essentially like a goth kid now, and as you know, Dan, this is what I'm aspiring to create. So she goes around singing like there's a band called The Creep Show, and she goes around singing like how's it go? It's something. The zombies ate her brains. Zombies ate her brains. Zombies ate her brains. and so my girlfriend is doing her best to make her like bougie and New York and fashionable. But like every so often I get to like a little bit of like my influence creeps up in there because she'll go like, I'm a vampire, whatever. I'm like, that's right.
That's great.
That's right.
That's the fight that I'm already having with my wife. That she is trying to buy like super cute clothes, and I just want to go like pure nerdy. So Dave actually gave me advice. So Dave's got two daughters, and his advice was like, you just make them weird. Just do whatever you gotta do, make them nerdy and weird, and that way
alone time in the car is good. Like where you can just like play all the music
Right.
that you want.
I'm just gonna play like the Lord of the Rings soundtrack.
Uncle Mike and Uncle Dave will send some onesies. like here you go. You gotta wear them because they were a gift.
Having a good mix is good, though. Giving them, it's good to have good, well-rounded children. So I would, do the cool nerd stuff, do the girly stuff, do it all.
Yeah,
It's fine.
totally.
Just gotta be weird enough to make boys not like them, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yes.
So I'm already like intervening. There's this boy who likes Diana named Liam, and Liam's like, oh, when I grow up, I'm gonna marry Diana. I'm gonna be like, you better have 2 degrees, kid.
Yeah, right.
It's like,
Liam.
it's like you're not allowed.
Liam?
Yeah.
Liam sounds like a little shit.
Yeah. Hot drama from Netflix UI engineers at the Twitter handle Netflix UIE. Apparently this is hot drama. I'm not sure why. Quote, removing client-side React.js, parenthetically, but keeping it on the server, resulted in a 50% performance improvement on our landing page. Dan, why are people running with this? I'm like, yeah, like it makes sense.
Yeah, so the metric was specifically their time to interaction, correct?
Yep. Yeah, TTI.
Yeah, so I guess it's from the single page application kind of world. There's this thought that if you don't do server-side rendering, then you can do things like show a spinner while the page is loading, and it makes them feel like the application is doing something. Where if you're strictly doing server-side rendering, you might, get a blank page for part of a second. But chances are that your server is going to be operating faster, can render that code, and then give them a full rendered page faster. So that's an argument that we've recently had at work. Like, should we bother, bootstrapping the application with spinners and that kind of thing, or should we just do server-side rendering and then upfront display the application?
Yeah, I've been a proponent since we started doing any kind of JavaScript SPA kind of development at work of this idea of doing, the universal apps, or what we used to call isomorphic apps. Just this idea of render it on the server, and then after wherever you come in, that first view, get it from the server, get those performance benefits that the server has, and then bootstrap the JavaScript application after the page is already loaded. So you kind of offload that part of it. So then everything else, all the other interactions and stuff going forward, are the single page application. So you get the best of both worlds. The problem is none of the frameworks originally, like Angular, things like that, really focused on that idea. They weren't built with that in mind. And so some of the more newer ones like React and things like that are really well suited for this. It's just getting people into the mindset of doing that extra work, because it is more work. It's harder.
It's not really that harder. Like React, fully supports it.
That's true. React makes it pretty inconsequential.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of wonkiness, like when we start pulling in some libraries that we use. Like we were using React Router. I guess we still are using React Router, and Redux, and we were trying to do the full progressive enhancement thing, so that if you hit a route, then we'll try to render it if you don't have the application running. But then we're trying to do all of the Redux state management, and that got a little bit too weird. So we might just, instead of doing like the full progressively enhanced site where it's a full React app on the background, maybe we'll just bootstrap that first page, or any landing page that a client might come into directly.
Yeah, it should be just whatever that first view. And if I could say something about the drama around this, is I think because the follow-up tweet to this, there were 2 tweets in this series. The second one was, we still love React, and we're prefetching it, and it essentially takes over the application as soon as you first come in. So they're basically, with that follow-up tweet, we're like, yeah, we're just doing a universal single or server-side rendered app bootstrapping JavaScript. It's not a new thing. It's just the drama of it is, Netflix is one of the biggest companies using React, and they have some of the best engineers, and they're saying that they don't need React because they don't need it in the client. They need it on the server, and that's it. And so people are, I think, misinterpreting what they're saying. And so I think it'd be helpful if the Netflix engineers, wrote a blog post or something about this, which they probably will, to kind of clear up some of that confusion. But the drama is sorry. I think it's interesting that I think it was, like we said, some of us have that view that, it would probably be better to do things server side, so that you immediately have a quick landing page. We talked about a couple other people, their gut feeling was, let the page load up and feel like the app is spinning up, because that feels better. And of course, none of us have the UX research on that to see if it, really matters. But also, I think the interesting thing is that 50% number, that's quite a lot. Yeah, I'd like to see how they got to that number, because that 50%, I'd like to see that. That's curious.
Vue 2.5 has been released, part of which includes environment agnostic server-side rendering. Quote, the default build of Vue server renderer assumes a Node.js environment, which makes it unusable in alternative JavaScript runtimes such as PHP v8.js or Nashorn. So in 2.5, we've shipped a build of Vue server renderer that is environment agnostic, which can be used in the browser or in pure JavaScript engines. This could open up interesting strategies such as utilizing Vue server rendering directly in your PHP process.
That's interesting. I don't know why. I guess, okay, so Vue specifically is pretty popular with the PHP crowd, especially because it's pushed, pretty heavily by the Laravel community, which is good that it's found a good home. So they must have just had to go through and pull out like their node specific functions for like the generic V8 features.
Does React or others have something similar built into React? I know there are like libraries that exist for using, especially PHP in particular. I know I've seen for doing universal apps with React and PHP JS or whatever it's called, V8JS, and running it in PHP instead of relying on Node. But I didn't know if it was actually part of React.
Yeah. So just the question is was the JavaScript just generic JavaScript, or did they require things from the Node API?
Yeah.
If it's just generic JavaScript, like it can just be run through PHP. But like using PHP to spin up V8 to check out some files from JavaScript, that's kind of a bit of overhead.
Oh yeah, it always seemed like not a great. Like I'd rather just have a node server, you know what I mean? Like let's just get a node server out there and just do that instead of going through all these.
That's the obvious choice if you're building an application from scratch, right? But it's cool.
You don't have a choice a lot of times. Yeah, true.
The ancestor to Chrome developer tools, Firebug, which has seen phenomenal success for over 12 years. I can't even fathom that it's been more than a decade long. The open source tool developed a near cult following among web developers, and I can remember why. When it came out in 2005, Firebug was the first tool to let programmers inspect, edit, and debug code right in the browser. It also let you monitor CSS, HTML, and JavaScript live in any web page. Yeah, I was questioning their sentence structure, which now is sort of any developer who came up within the last decade probably takes for granted. Firebug is now reaching the end of its life in the Firefox browser. With the release of Firefox Quantum version 57 next month that we talked about the last episode, the good news is that all the capabilities of Firebug are, now just kind of baked into dev tools. The story of Firefox and Firebug is synonymous with the rise of the web. Quote, we fought the good fight and changed how developers inspect HTML and debug GS in the browser. It ushered in the Web 2.0 era, and today the work pioneered by the Firebug community over the last 12 years lives on in developer tools around the globe. Sad day.
I'm surprised that it's still been supported for this long, to be honest, but man, this is another one of those feelings ones. This is like a watershed moment when I discovered Firebug, right? Like it was like that. I think I was mentioning to you guys before that you've seen that meme where it's like an X-ray of someone's head or whatever, and it's like their brain's kind of glowing a little, and then like the next one is like there's all this light coming out of the brain. It's like this progression of your brain is like expanding every time you learn this new thing or whatever. And that made me think of this, that Firebug was like one of those big, like blow your mind, like steps for me as a developer. In the same, I put it up there with some stuff like CSS Zen Garden or whatever being like one of those watershed things that made me really understand CSS. Like this made me really understand like how these things work together, how I can look at them in the browser and debug stuff without having to just try random stuff and hit save every time. And yeah, finding out about Firebug is probably 2007 or something for me, just changed everything about how I built websites.
Interesting you said 2007. So even though it was released in January 2006, January 2007, Firebug 1.0, and the unofficial start of Web 2.0. To your credit, you mentioned that, yeah, Firebug could probably be credited with the entire design in the browser workflow and movement. You know, like you don't have to. Can you imagine?
Right. It's like its forefather, essentially.
Yeah, I can't even imagine not doing it now. That's how core it has become to like how we work, let alone work using any client side libraries like Vue or React, right?
Oh yeah, certainly. I had a little bit of a different experience because when I first started doing development, I came from having learned like things on like the Windows side and things that just had built-in built-in debuggers into their systems like Visual Basic and that kind of stuff. So when I was switching to the web, it was one of the first things I was doing was like, oh, you gotta debug this JavaScript. So then I, Googled it, found the plugin, and started using it. If they didn't have that, I would probably think like, what is this like archaic shit that we're doing? And I would just like probably have given up on web and just like kept going with like what was easy to write and debug. And then I probably would be in a completely different career now.
Yeah. Wow. I was thinking about thinking of time frames and stuff. I was a strong Firefox user for a long time until I think it was Firefox 4, maybe around 2010 or 11, somewhere in that range. I was using Firefox exclusively for everything. And they came out with Firefox 4 and it like broke the entire plugin ecosystem with that release. And so everybody had to rewrite their plugins. And so instead of waiting for that, I was like, I guess fine, I'll try Chrome. And so up until it was like 2010, 2011, I was still using Firebug exclusively in Firefox, and then Chrome developer tools were there when I switched. And so it was like an easy kind of transition, but I hung on to that for quite a few years using just Firebug.
What if, assuming that you already have a robust design system where all the different parts of your UI are named, what if you could use kind of like machine learning algorithms so that you could sketch an app like on a piece of paper, not using the Sketch app, but actual Sketch, and then the system, snap a photo of it, load it up, and then the system bootstraps that app for you. It looks like Airbnb actually just did that. Airbnb's design system, this is a quote, is well documented, and each component within the system has been named. We, as an Airbnb, developed a working theory that if machine learning algorithms can classify a complex set of thousands of handwritten symbols, like Chinese characters, with a high degree of accuracy, then we should be able to classify the 150 components in our design system and teach the machine to recognize them. So they built a prototype that using like a dozen hand-drawn components, like, oh, this is a card, this is a search box, and a small amount of intermediary code to render them from the design system into the browser. And yeah, and it worked. They take a picture and they load it up, and it becomes a largely coded user interface.
This is mind blowing to me. When I saw this the other day, just like, I mean, it blew my mind while at the same time being, well, yeah, I was like, oh, of course, that's the next thing they would do. Like it was almost like simultaneously I was super impressed, but also like not unexpected. with the, they have the React Sketch app that kind of, marries the Sketch application, not actual drawings, with their React components. And so you make changes to the component and it updates live in Sketch, or you can pull all these different pieces in Sketch, drag them around, and use real data from your app, your components to make your designs in Sketch. So the fact that they've already done that, taking that to the next level in this way is just, it seems super obvious, but also like came out of left field and was like, wow, that's incredible.
You're right. It's absolutely the next logical step, because so for the Sketch app, they basically have spent a bunch of time developing their React components based on their design system, and they actually go back and forth between creating React applications, and they can just export that to a Sketch application. And I think it works vice versa, right? Like they can build something in Sketch and then export it to React?
No. It's the source of truth for React Sketch app is React. So that's where you build the stuff, and then it's available in Sketch.
So this is basically just
that.
Yep. This is basically just that next step of, well, I can just draw a box, and then it knows that box is a certain type of field. I mean, it totally makes sense. Like, it's just basically going back to like a WYSIWYG editor where you just drag a component onto the screen and then it's there. But now you can just do it off of a whiteboard.
Think about doing
React
that.
app, and then you can export the React app to a Sketch app.
Right. Think about doing that in a just an ideation type meeting or something. Just drawing on whiteboard. Like, what if we did stuff like this? And just drawing it out, and then being able to instantly, have the computer screen open too, and it's as you're drawing, essentially. Like, think about like next step for something like this. As you're drawing it, the camera is on the screen and it's building a prototype using your real components, whatever, right there on the screen. Everybody can, collaborate and stuff. It means like it takes away that you have to even know the tools, right? You're just drawing on a board. Anybody can do that. As long as you know the language, the design language that's established, what the things that exist in your system are. If you can draw some boxes and lines, like you can prototype and build the same thing that a designer or engineer can do.
I think this is just empowering the designers to do that bit. So we kind of have a little bit of a kind of a poor feedback loop on my team. So we have like the designers who design something, and then we have like a front end engineer like pick it up and go whip it up in CSS. And a lot of it, like, we have some of the patterns already coded, but we don't have like a well established design pattern yet. So this really solves that feedback loop, and I like how it kind of inverses the job of engineers not to code interfaces, but to code the tools that are used to make the interfaces. So things like design tools and training machine learning algorithms to output their UI. We went through this a little bit a few years ago, doing some back-end system work, API work, where before the job role was kind of like take requirements and code them, and we're just taking time to write all of the if statements and the loops and that kind of thing. But that is more and more shifting to instead of us actually writing code, it's us managing rules engines that somebody like an analyst can use to configure rules, as opposed to like us writing the code. So now we're modifying, and some of our code time is spent working on those kind of systems, as opposed to just writing the code that does those checks themselves, because that way we get more bang for our buck. Like, we spend time supporting the system, more people can use these systems to implement things that engineers would spend time writing.
On Wednesday, Reddit announced a new policy clarifying its rules against content that incites violence. Quote, "We will take action against any content that encourages, glorifies, incites, or calls for violence or physical harm against an individual or group of people." Within minutes, moderators started banning a long list of controversial subreddits like r/Nazis, r/sex with dogs. And the bounds of propriety remain fairly wide at Reddit, however. Commentators pointed out that r/watch people die, which is exactly what it sounds like, is still around. And so on and so on. So
not to be confused with, what is it? People fucking
dying. Oh my
Right,
god.
which is
That's
a great
one of my
one.
favorite. There was a meme like just yesterday of like someone took like a video of their eggs cooking in the frying pan, and it kind of had a very loose like human face structure, like it had like a little mouth, and like cooking in the oil, like the little like part where you would imagine a mouth would be was kind of like bubbling, and the title was something like it's like man brutally cooked alive.
Oh wow, that's good stuff.
Not that this is actually one of the tabs that we have open or that we discussed before recording, but this isn't dissimilar in spirit in, say, Twitter cracking down on the entire country of Russia or anything like this. So like we were discussing an episode or 2 episodes ago that there was actually legislation that if passed, would put the onus on what people say on the social media platforms on the purveyors of that social media in the first place. So it is relevant that like, you know, especially with the high profile scrutiny that Facebook is currently under with, again, regard to Russia, that Twitter and Reddit are taking a much more forward initiative step, you know, where it seems maybe like Facebook is trying to identify and figure out the problem, like it hasn't done a whole lot yet. These are pretty big. Reddit's not banning Russia, but Twitter did. Or like, you know, like certain Russian media outlets, and it looks like kind of like the battle for the moral thumbs ups is coming from these 2 competitors. So it's interesting. Like how do we feel? Is this newsworthy?
I think this is good. I think there's a study that was done a little bit I think it might have even been related to Reddit. Like they did a study the last time Reddit did a big kind of crackdown on content, because they had a big problem with
creep videos,
like creep stuff and like pedophilia and these kind of things, and having that these subreddits existed that were about, you know, clearly illegal things, and they had a big crackdown on that, and somebody did a study, and it's linked in a lot of these articles about this topic, that it showed that it doing what they're like banning this kind of stuff. The counter argument is always, they'll just make a new one, a new subreddit, or they'll make a new username or whatever, and they'll just come back. The study showed that it was like a significant decrease in the number of violations and stuff because they did it, because it was kind of like just making it seem like not a place that's welcoming to them was enough to either, you know, have them, they might still be on Reddit, but they're not doing the same stuff that they were, or they've moved off to somewhere else that might be more accommodating, like 4chan or whatever. Vote was the one that they went to last time when they cracked down on all this creepy stuff. So I think that just, you know, there's probably more studies that need to be done on this kind of thing, but there is some evidence out there saying that this works, and that it's a way to, you know, to curb that kind of stuff from existing in your platform.
Yeah, it's interesting though, but you know, I'm all for Reddit like cracking down. I sometimes wish it would be more so, right? Just people who troll. Obviously, it's expensive and time consuming to kind of like program for that or to manually take care of that. But you know, we talked about before, like you don't you don't have the freedom of speech on social media. Like, you're using somebody else's like application. They can come up with whatever terms and service they want. Like, you can take your soapbox to the street and say whatever you want, but when you're online through a service that you're not paying for, then you're kind of at the mercy of whatever they think is right. So, I wish they'd step it up a notch.
It also puts, a more of a spotlight on one of the big reactions I saw to this news was, putting more of a spotlight on the low amount of effort that Twitter seems to have done to kind of curb the same kind of stuff. Like, there's this movement a bit that, Nazis and things like that are feeling like Twitter is our place right now because no one's stopping us from doing all of this. And the fact that, that was one of the big comments to this article was like, well, it's your move now, Twitter. Like, other people are doing this. You don't have an excuse. So, it'd be interesting to see where they go in the future.
Yeah. I mean, specifically Reddit, I believe most of their platform is open source. Like, if you want to pay to host your site to talk about whatever you want, like, feel free to go pay for hosting and set it up.
Except if you're, Stormfront, you might not.
Well, yeah, you can't piss off your host.
So there's
you can build your own host. Like, you can
build your own host with hookers and
with blackjack and hookers.
Blackjack and hookers. Right.
Storm Reddit.
I know a guy who
call back to previous.
He's not a Nazi, but he's got his own server rack and he hosts all of his own stuff. He's just
he's not a Nazi.
He's not a Nazi. That's good.
No, he's not a Nazi. Okay. He's just a guy who wants to play with like server racks.
Wait until the Nazis get a hold of Airbnb's like sketching system and their algorithms.
Oh man,
they're gonna make all kinds of Nazi sites.
Last but not least, it would not be a Halloween time episode if we didn't talk a little bit about our Halloween costumes. Let me spoil it. I am going as I don't even know his name. The Tom Hanks character in A League of Their Own.
What?
Yeah, that's right. So I've got these. I've got this late 30s, early 40s era baseball uniform with like the big like parachute pantaloons and the thigh high red socks and and my girlfriend has kind of the League of Their Own like ladies outfit, which is significantly cuter.
Right, the like skirt.
I look bizarre. Yeah. So,
that's funny. Yeah, that's a good one. I like that.
What about the kids?
Dariana. Okay, so it's a toss-up between Catwoman. So we've already done like trunk or treats, like at her school and other little Halloween events. When we threw a little Halloween board game party, we could talk about the board game I played. And for both of those, she was Catwoman. For something at school, she was Moana. And she may or may not be. Oh, of course, and then so she might go back and forth. Now Elliot, he has I got him a cool like Master Chief costume and whatever.
Nice.
But the mask that came with it is like the one that like slips over the front and it looks pretty cool, but like the back is whatever. So I got him like a real helmet,
like a real Master Chief,
Master Chief helmet,
like the one that came with the Xbox a few years ago.
And he has because he is the bringer of war incarnate. He has like a ton of Halo themed like Nerf guns that look really cool, like the Needler and stuff like that. So so he's going to go as Chief. What about you guys?
So my costume, we're not really doing anything. I'm just gonna hand out candy. But so for those who don't know me, I'm a bit of a husky guy. And my costume, my costume is Where's Waldo? oh, he's right there. He's just kind of hard to miss. He's kind of let himself go. So that's my costume.
Like a self-deprecating joke that you're like, haha, this is funny, and I also feel bad at the same time.
It's like Where's Waldo becomes a software engineer, kind of lets himself go a bit.
Yeah, basically.
Good stuff.
And then for the baby, we've got a lamb costume. It's like a full bodysuit that somebody has given us, and I think my wife might have some more things put away.
Multiple costumes, huh?
Well, we got a lot of hand-me-downs for that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, we always had that stuff too.
She'll probably do some costume changes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
What's your wife going as?
She's not going as anything. She had some, because we weren't sure when the baby would be here. So she had some like pregnant Halloween costume ideas. But now she doesn't have anything.
Oh man, ruined all of her.
Some of those are really cool too. They're getting like really clever and funny.
She was gonna do one that we found online of like taking a baby doll and doing like a zombie baby bursting out of her stomach.
Yes.
Sweet.
I've seen that before. That's gross. Good stuff. So I'm kind of bad at thinking of Halloween costumes, and I'm usually so busy with getting the kids ready and stuff that I don't even think of one for myself. So at this point, I'm not sure if I will dress up or do anything for Halloween personally, but and my wife's kind of the same way. She'll usually maybe like draw some whiskers on her face or something like that. Maybe I'll do the same. Who knows? But my kids are going, one of them is going as a unicorn, my oldest daughter, and my youngest is going as a fairy. So pretty classic, simple Halloween costumes from them. And my wife makes all of them herself, so we never like buy.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, she's very crafty, and every year she'll make, awesome. Like they went as dragons from the like How to Train Your Dragon. So my kids have Halloween costumes of that, where each one has like she made it on like a hoodie, like a zip up hoodie. So it has like the hood has like the dragon's face and stuff, and then she makes big wings and does all that. So they both have these cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So then they have them
dope.
for the future too, and they can play with them, whatever. My oldest daughter went as Hermione from Harry Potter a year or two ago, and she sewed her
got her nerd
a
credit right
floor length like robe, and we got one of the patches and ironed it on, and she handmade her a wand. Like she got a dowel, she painted it, she did the design so that it was like the exact same as what Hermione used. So really cool. She goes all out for the kids. And then we end up not doing anything for ourselves is what it ends up being. So
well, I think that's fair with all the time that goes into that.
Right.
And I guess lastly, by our next episode, Movember will have started. We all have different kinds of facial hair happening. So are we going to go the entire month without shaving?
I haven't shaved in over a month anyway.
Good. Let it go.
Yeah, I always have
you guys can't see me on camera right now, but
right.
It's getting there.
I always have this kind of thing with Movember, right? It's like I've had a beard as long as I can remember, and I've only shaved it off a couple times because I like accidentally trimmed too close or you mess it up, and then you gotta. And I look so weird without it, so it's like. Does Movember mean that I have to shave clean and then grow for a month, or is it just don't shave or do anything for a month? If that's the case, like that's me just about every month. So I'm participating if that's the case.
All right, guys. Well, I think that is it for this our terrifying episode. We will be back at you this time next week. If you like this kind of thing, we'd really appreciate a like, heart, favorite, share, and maybe even like a kind
Like,
review
here's my
on
beard.
iTunes. That's how people discover us. We also now officially have like a domain. You can find this and all future episodes at w3radio.com. We have a Twitter handle, w3_radio. I'm not saying that you have to hassle the folks who have the actual W3 Radio handle, but you know, if you feel like a violent Redditor, you know what to do. Also, I'm not saying that you should tweet us out to
Did you
folks
just
like
incite violence on...
consider reaching out to, you know, like if you want, like to like folks like Chris Coyer, you know, stuff like that. You know, we aren't above hustling for our downloads per month. So we really appreciate the time you guys give to us every week and the understanding that maybe we're not there every other week, but you guys are great. With that, we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys.
Baby.